Hello and welcome to another episode of Starside Chat. I am one of your hosts, Aaron, and with me as always is Zach. How's it going, Zach?
Good. I've been playing a ton more Elden Ring, and there's a ton of other stuff that has come out recently, so we got a lot of stuff to talk about this week.
Yes, I'm excited to talk to you about Elden Ring. But let's dive into the news first, and then at the back half of the show we can talk about things we've been playing. I have been playing that Tunic game, which came out this week, which we'll talk about.
I'm very excited to hear about that, yeah.
But what's this first news item you've got?
All right, so BioWare is, apparently they have brought on a YouTuber who goes by Lessons from the Screenplay to work on the next Mass Effect game. Now, I am aware of Lessons from the Screenplay. I've seen some of his videos. He actually did a video at one point about why Mass Effect should be the next Game of Thrones, or like how like you could make a TV show about Mass Effect and it would be as good as, or sort of somewhat similar to, has maybe some similar elements to Game of Thrones. And I don't remember that video because it came out so long ago. I just remember that he did a video about it.
Yeah.
But either way, very interesting to bring on somebody who their channel is sort of built around like analyzing movies and TV shows and talking about screenwriting and things like that. I think he does a podcast as well. But I don't know, maybe he's going to be brought in to help with writing some of the storylines in the next Mass Effect, which is pretty cool.
How was the writing? I never played Andromeda. How was the writing in that?
It was okay. It was like clearly a step down from the 3 previous games. I still enjoyed it well enough for what it was, but it was like lacking by comparison to the other games. And yeah. Maybe that's why they were like, we need to bring in some outside help, but I don't know. I feel like Andromeda got a lot more hate than it deserved, but it was also clearly not quite as good as the other 3.
Do you think we'll see anything about Mass Effect this summer in the Summer of Games, or whatever it's called? Summer Games Fest?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I heard something about how EA was not planning to do an EA Play this year. So
I am remembering that now, yeah.
Probably not, unfortunately, which also, like, Dragon Age, whatever the next Dragon Age game is going to be, is the next thing on the docket for BioWare. So, I mean, supposedly we won't hear anything about that. Now, that doesn't mean that they won't do, like, their own individual thing. Like, they may have... I don't know, like a state of play about it at some point. Who knows? But
or Microsoft, they might show up in one of the other. If Microsoft does a big thing, they might.
Yeah,
have
that's
like
true
a
as well. They may not be doing their own full-on EA presentation, but they might like have some of their stuff appear in one of the other guys. Like not a Nintendo Direct, but a state of play or a
right
Microsoft thing, but.
I saw an article about how Super Nintendo World is opening in America next year. There is the one in Japan, which I'm sure... Did you watch a bunch of videos of people going through the one in Japan when they opened it?
I did, yeah. I
did as well.
This, I think, is very cool. I'm probably way more excited to go to a Nintendo-themed amusement park than like a Disney World, even though... They're trying to do something very similar, just themed to Nintendo. But yeah, no, I watched a bunch of videos when that opened in Japan last year and sort of lived vicariously through the YouTubers who were going around Super Nintendo World in Universal Japan.
Do you know the number one thing I learned from those videos that I didn't know previous to that?
What?
In Japan, Toad's name is Canopio.
Canopio, which sounds
Isn't that
like
weird?
Pinocchio. It's just, they rearranged some of the letters. Yeah.
Because there's the restaurant, or maybe just one of the restaurants at Super Nintendo World is Canopio's Cafe. And I was like, man, who is Canopio? Why is Toad everywhere? And then I Googled it, and I was like, man, what a crazy thing.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. And if you're going to rename him randomly, because they didn't, to my knowledge, they didn't rename all the rest of the characters. Maybe they renamed some of them,
No.
but why Toad?
Oh, great question. I guess Canopio, because Peach is just Peach. That's like an American word already. Mario is Italian. Luigi's Italian. I don't know what Canopio's meaning is in Japanese, but Toad definitely makes sense to me, being a toadstool.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. I was thinking more in terms of the animal Toad. Like, why would you name it that? But yeah, I guess Toadstool does make sense. You can't go Mushroom Man, I guess, but
Maybe that's what Canopio means. I don't know.
yeah, maybe. Either way, yeah, that was pretty interesting. I would love to go at some point to this. It's opening in 2023 in Los Angeles. So
I've never been to California before.
I spent a semester of college in LA, and it was pretty cool to be there. And I think I would like to go back, if only to go to Super Nintendo World.
You know where I want to go?
Where?
The world of Starfield.
I also would like to go there. What did you think of this? So Bethesda put out a 5-6 minute long video where they had some of the developers sitting around talking about what they were excited about.
I'm into this. I don't know how many of these we're going to get. I would predict at least 2 more before the big... I think that they are going to do some sort of big Fallout 4 style. Here is a full mission. Here's the inventory. Mm-hmm. Here's us talking to someone. I think that is going to be this summer. And then they're going to be also it's coming out. Well, I guess we already know when it's coming out. But I think that's going to happen this summer. I think we're going to get 2 or 3 more of these for 5 in total. But I really liked I like this. All of these, I was texting you about this. The first one and this one are underscored by the Starfield theme, which if you go and you type in Starfield theme, you can see they did an orchestra. They did a live play of it. And it's just a really good theme. Bethesda really knows how to make themes. Mm-hmm. So I enjoyed the music part of this, and there were some snippets you could grab from this. There's a brief... People believe this is the first true, possibly gameplay we've seen, obviously without a UI or anything, but there's a brief 15-second, maybe not even that, maybe a 10-second shot of one of the companions. The companions, I guess, are going to be a thing in this game, like previous Bethesda games, of your robot friend, Vasco, I believe is his name.
Yeah, so...
Did you ever use a companion in Skyrim or Fallout? I almost never went with companion because I was always doing a stealth build.
I did, and I know, it's possible to get somebody who's decent at stealth that will join you in stealth, but yeah, it is sort of a weird thing to be going for more of a stealth build, and to, that be your main approach to combat, and then just have, Lydia from Skyrim just lumbering around, just drawing everybody's attention.
Yeah.
But no, it's I always had a companion because you could stash stuff on them. So if you ever became over encumbered, you just throw some stuff at them and then.
Oh, you know what? I had the dog in Fallout New Vegas. I used the dog in Fallout New Vegas.
Yeah.
Because he was good at stealth. When you went in stealth, he would just crouch down and get behind you.
Yeah, and you can give them commands to attack people as well. Mm-hmm. Which is maybe a good way to break stealth. But yeah, I always liked the companions. I always wished you could take more than one of them. But actually, I think it was possible in Skyrim. Now that I'm thinking of it, to have your companion and then to meet somebody who will join you for part of a quest, and instead of completing the next checkpoint of that quest, just to go do other stuff, and he'll just
and they would just continue
he'll just stay with you the whole time because he's supposed to follow you until you complete that next quest objective. And then so in doing that, you can have you and your horse and your one companion and your like quest companion, you feel like you have this like whole like horde of people with you. But I am excited for companions. It was a weird thing where they kind of talk about like the faces and the characters and like how they're using their technology to make the character models, and then instead of like talking about a human, they show off like a robot companion.
Well, that's what they were talking about, because like I guess they've used photogrammetry in the past for like textures on items. But now they're transferring that into like NPCs, so like their people are going to be much more photorealistic.
Yeah, which I hope is good. It's just like, why didn't they show that off a little bit? Like,
yeah, still very mysterious. We still have not seen a ton of this game, which is kind of insane.
Yeah, but like we talked a little bit like a couple weeks ago about Horizon Forbidden West and how good the like facial animations and everything in that game are, and just like the character models. And it is sort of a weird thing to like look at that game for like a few hours and then like go to pretty much every other game because they don't hold up in comparison. So I'm hoping that the NPCs and all the characters in Starfield look just as good. But I guess we'll have to wait and find out.
Did you play a lot of Oblivion back in the day?
I did play through it. Yeah, I mean I liked that game, but it was in my memory does not hold a candle to Skyrim. But maybe that's just me.
What did you think of the persuasion system in that? Because basically, when you talk to someone and you did any sort of like speech challenge, my memory is that like a pie chart came up, and I never knew how that worked. I would just kind of click around randomly. Do you remember that?
That was the thing. They were talking about this, and they were showing like a clip from Oblivion, but it's been so long since I played that game that I have very little memory of that.
It was like a goal, like you would talk to someone, and then if you wanted to do a speech challenge with them, like this golden pie chart came up with like varying like percents of things. It was very confusing to me as a kid. But I guess there's going to be a persuasion system that takes notes from that in this game. I don't know what that's going to look like, but it will be, I guess, if you're trying to go for like a high charm, I guess we don't even know the skill categories of this. Like, we don't know if there's going to, I imagine strength is going to be something you can put money in or like points into, but I guess we're not really sure like what other traits you're going to be able to do. That's something else they talked about in the story, is like they said they'd gotten away from making these like dense systems where you have to like customize your character. And I guess that's kind of, I don't know, I feel like in Fallout games that is like the first hour and a half of gameplay is you picking traits about your character when you're a child.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
But I guess there's going to be a lot more like dense systems in this, which I'm all about.
Yeah, I'm wondering how, like, are you going to start as like such and such a type of character, and maybe on your next playthrough you'll start out as a different type of playthrough, and will it be like Skyrim where you're like building skill points as you use different things, or is it going to be a little bit more like Fallout where maybe you're just like, as you level up you're picking like sort of perks almost?
Oblivion, I think, did it a very cool way where the first part of that you were walking around with Jean-Luc Picard, and then he dies, and then you basically go through that little mini dungeon to escape. You're like in the sewers, and you have like a bunch of tutorials, and then right before you leave to the open world, it's like, hey, what do you want to do? Like, these are the different traits, these are the archetypes, or you can create your own and name it. And so I wonder if it'll be something like that. I think Fallout did do it well too, where they made you take those tests and stuff.
The special.
And they were like, they recommended what they thought you might want to do. But it's interesting. I wonder if it will be like an enlistment thing, because you are part of Constellation, is the, I guess, company you work for. And so maybe it is like a thing where you're filling out. Oh, that's something else we should talk about. I guess this is like a cyberpunk style opening because you can pick 3 different backgrounds. You can be the space western style. I don't remember the names of them all, but there's like the space western style, like Free Collective, I think they're called, or something like that. Then there is the like kind of normal utopia, like kind of Star Trek style. I don't know. In my mind, it looked like the generic opener, the one people will pick. And then there's the corporate one, which they were like, oh, the corporate one has a very cool opening because you like get hired into a corporation. And so I guess you can pick one of these 3 things, and your opening, much like Cyberpunk, will be vastly different from other people's.
Yeah, which I thought was an interesting way to start out Cyberpunk, and you could pick a different one for each playthrough you want to do. Curious to see how that impacts like story related things throughout the game, because Mass Effect had sort of a similar thing where you had like your 3 different backgrounds, or like you were like an Earthborn person, or you were like somebody, a soldier, or you were like somebody who was born and grew up on like freighters and stuff like that, out in like space hopping, and
a spacer.
Yeah, and it didn't really have much of an impact on the story or like any sort of interaction you might have had with characters throughout the game. It was just sort of like a know your own lore of
every once in a while. Someone would be like, "Where are you from?" And then you would say like, "Oh, I'm from here." I think Cyberpunk did it better.
Yeah, Cyberpunk did it much better.
Because I picked Street Kid. What did you pick?
I think I started as the corporate dude.
I got, as Street Kid, a lot of instances of being like, you can say this, or a Street Kid option where you're like, oh yeah, I remember that from when I was a kid. Everybody used to run that deck or whatever.
Yeah, there was always like a dialogue option based on like your background that you chose. And you pretty much always would want to use that one too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm curious how they will weave that in.
Other snippets, they talked about possibly a villainous or not necessarily villainous faction, the Crimson Fleet, which I guess are pirates, which they said you can either choose to join the pirates if you want to, or you can kind of fake join them and like report back to your supervisor about them and like get them taken down. But if you want to just go full Crimson Fleet, I think that is a viable option, which I think is cool.
Yeah, they were trying to make it sound like you could sort of be a little bit of a double agent where you like are working for one faction, but you sort of infiltrate another faction. And so you sort of have different options there. And it made me kind of wonder if there was like going to be some sort of like Paragon Renegade type of a system there where you, because they mentioned that one faction might be like the bad guys, but you could join them, but you could also like take them down from the inside. So it makes me think that you can either be a really good character or you can join the bad guys and just be a really bad guy. And I wonder how that's going to play into whatever the central storyline is, because we have no sense whatsoever of what the central storyline for this game is going to be.
No. It's insane to me. Like, it's going to be such a revelation when they do that 40-minute... I mean, I hope they do this. When they do the big reveal. Because, we haven't seen anything. I'm so curious about, like, what the inventory system looks like. I want to know, my number one thing is if you click on a door to go into a building, does it black out and load an instance of inside like all their previous games? Or is it all just there? That's something I super want the answer to.
Yeah, and I think it's going to depend on, like, where you go, because I feel like it's not going to be just an open world the way like Elden Ring is, where it occurred to me that in Elden Ring you can like, there's not a loading screen between like adventuring in the open world and going into like a catacomb. You just like go down in there and you're immediately there. There's no loading screen between it. which is very cool. But I feel like Starfield is the kind of game where you're going to like fly to a different planet and you'll be exploring there for a while. And so it's possible that once you get there, you won't have any loading screens as you're exploring, even if you go into like these other areas, or you go into, for lack of a better term, you go to a catacomb there, so to speak. You can just go down into it without a loading screen. But you're probably loading in between areas as you're flying there. It's just maybe hidden by like a flight animation of some sort, but that would be my guess.
Your robot, Vasco, definitely is on your spaceship with you. And I wonder if, as you get more companions, all of them, it'll be a Mass Effect style situation where all of them will be in your spaceship. It doesn't seem that big, but I wonder if you can have more than one person, or if you will have a home. I think in all Bethesda games, you've had the ability to purchase a house of some kind. In Oblivion, you could purchase like 5 of them.
I bet you'll be able to buy a house on like every place you go.
It would be interesting. I would like that.
Yeah, me too.
What's you're hip deep in Elden Ring now, and I would imagine that right now it's on track to be your game of the year.
For now it is, but I mean, there's a lot of other things that are coming out as well that I don't want to necessarily give it game of the year before I've seen what else is coming, even though I'm definitely leaning that way the more I play it.
Well, let's talk about, they just had their first big patch.
Yeah, so a few things got nerfed. So, like, I was watching, I think it was Dan Tack. We've talked about him. He's from Game Informer. He does stream on Twitch, and he's been doing a bunch of playthroughs. I feel like he's on his, 5th different playthrough already. Wow. But he doesn't do everything in every playthrough. He'll, pick a different class that he wants to focus on, and he'll just, focus fire on the quest that will maybe be most beneficial to that type of a character. So he doesn't complete everything on every playthrough, but which is a pretty good way to play through the game if you want to play through multiple times. I've seen other streamers also talk about that, where they're like, I'm saving some quest lines for a different playthrough so I don't have to hit everything in one go, whereas I don't know that I will play the game through multiple times, so I want to do everything in one go, but that's just me.
That's a lot of hours. Yeah, I know that you can do New Game Plus, right? At the very end, you can say start a second journey.
Yeah, you can. So you have the option to either start a complete new blank slate playthrough where you can do something completely different, or you can do New Game Plus where everything carries over. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, anyway, he was playing through at one point. I think he was doing a dex build and he was using a flail as his main weapon, but he got that Hoarfrost Stomp Ash of War, which is a special ability that you can get. And it just the character will stomp on the ground, and ice, or sort of a snowy effect sort of shoots out and, out in front of him along the ground, and sort of a fairly wide range, and it hits everything and causes this sort of ice buildup explosion on the enemies, and it was super powerful, and he was able to take down some pretty big bosses just spamming that really quickly. And he even one of the hardest bosses in the game that he was super excited to show the stream, he was like, this boss is really tough and it's really cool, you're gonna really enjoy this fight. And then he just took the boss down just spamming that in 10 seconds, and he was like, well, that's not how that's supposed to go. But that gave me hope that if I use this ability, maybe I can get through some of those harder fights that I might not have gotten through otherwise. But sadly, that is among the things that they have nerfed. There have been some bug fixes as well. They did actually add some dialogue to some of the quest lines as well. And they added an NPC as well. I'm just going over some of the patch notes here.
I know that everyone was talking about that Mimics tier is supposed to be super good, and that's supposedly not as good.
Yeah, that was another one of the things that they nerfed a little bit. They made it so that it takes a little bit longer, I think maybe even to cast and for it to get going. And then maybe it doesn't hit as hard. I'm not exactly sure. But basically there were a number of things that people were considering overpowered that they have nerfed a little bit. Which is sad because I thought it was cool actually that they had stuff in the game that was just like crazy overpowered and then you could just like choose to use it or not. So in the patch notes it says they decrease the damage of Spirit Summon when using Mimic Tier and change the spirit's behavior pattern. So I'm not sure what that entails, but that's what they have listed. They also, increase the cast time of Hoarfrost Stomp and decrease the damage a little bit. So since they put out this list of updates, I actually went away from Hoarfrost Stomp. So I used it for a little while. I didn't use it to like spam against a boss at all. I just kind of used it just to see what it was like. And I thought, well, maybe this will be a thing that I will go to if I find myself stuck on like a really tough boss. But a
panic button.
Yeah, exactly. But that did not happen before they have nerfed it. So since then I have actually respec'd my character. I did actually find the Mimic Tier as well. I just got it after they nerfed it. So
that means you have defeated Radahn, correct?
Yes. So you have to defeat Radahn, which is actually a pretty cool boss fight. It's an optional boss fight. I don't think you need to beat him to complete the game, but it was a pretty cool boss fight, and I wanted to get Mimic Tier, which I knew was something you would have to beat him to get. And that opens up like another area in the game that I don't think you can get to without beating him. And that's where the Mimic Tier is. And so for people that don't know, the Mimic Tier is basically like the game has this system where you can call in these summons, and you're collecting them throughout the game. And they're basically like the ones I had been using were I could summon in these two soldiers that I had found the summon somewhere along the game as I was playing through, and they will help you with boss fights. And this is one of the reasons why a lot of people consider Elden Ring a lot more accessible, especially for like people who are new to Soulsborne games, because you can summon in NPC help to help you take down a boss. And that's why if you watch a lot of like the people who are consider themselves like real, I don't know, like a hardcore Soulsborne people, and they're streaming it, they will specifically not use summons, and they will demand that they take them down by themselves as like their own challenge, I guess. But I'm all about the summons. I want the summons, but anyway, the Mimic Tier one, you bring in this little, they have these blobs in the game that are enemies that will, you can either attack them and take them down quickly, or they will eventually, I think, like turn into some sort of enemy. It's like a mimic of some other, it's basically Ditto from Pokemon. And so yeah, you can summon in one of those, and it will essentially be you. It'll be your character. It has all of your character's equipment and all of your stats, and they do like anything you have equipped on your like bar that you would want to use, it has access to and can use as well. And so it's basically like having two of you to fight a boss. So it's a pretty good one. It's probably the best. I need to level mine up more. I need to get more of that resource that you need to
I saw
strengthen it.
I saw a video about how you can cheese it a little bit, where I guess there's a helm. It's one of those like stone face helms. And if you wear it, it constantly attracts the boss's attention and aggression. But if you wear it and then you make your mimic wear it, then you take it off, then the boss is just constantly focused on your mimic the entire fight until it kills it.
Oh, so like when you summon it, you have the helmet on and then you take it off mid-fight and he just stays focused?
Exactly, yeah.
That would be interesting. It would be difficult to set up, I feel like, because you would need a lot of space so that the boss is not attacking you while you're trying to take it.
You need to be very good at menuing.
Yeah, you need to be very quick with that, but you almost have to like wait until the boss has already focused its attention on your mimic and then go into your menu. But
yeah.
But I started out basically as like a dexterity character because I started as a samurai and I wanted to use katanas. But then I sort of confused my build a little bit because I started going away from the katanas and I was using that Bloodhound's Fang, which is a great sword. And it's very good. And I was using that for a long while. So I started putting more points into strength, which I maybe didn't need to do. I'm also like new to these games. So I don't really know what I'm doing when it comes to leveling this stuff up. And so I did respec my character. And I am doing a build currently that is built around the Moonveil katana, which I got a long time ago, but didn't have the skill to actually use it until now. Because in order to use certain weapons, you have to have like a certain level and like 2 or 3 different skills. And I needed like 23 intellect to use Moonveil because it's a magic-based sword. And so I respec my character and put a bunch of points into intellect, and I think that's the stat that I need to level up to keep making it stronger. And I think because I put Hoarfrost Stomp on my Uji katana, which is the other katana that I have that I started out with, I think that now also scales off of intellect. So
can you reuse Ashes of War, or once you put them on a weapon, they're gone?
You can reuse them. I think you can even duplicate them as well.
Interesting.
But yeah, no, I initially put Hoarfrost Stomp on a different weapon, and I was like, just to try it out. And I was like, I'm not going to use this weapon. But so I removed it from that, and I put it on the katana I was using. So now I'm dual wielding katanas, and one of them is Moonveil, so it has magic damage, and the other one in my offhand is doing ice damage, and they both, because their katanas, are building like bleed damage. And of course, when I use my Ash of War for Moonveil, I can throw these sort of magic attacks out like 10 feet in front of myself, so it's been pretty good. I'm enjoying.
Seems like a good build.
Yeah, I'm enjoying the build for now. Although I think eventually I will switch gears once I get that. What is it? There's another katana that's like all about bleed damage and like.
Oh yeah.
I forget the name of it.
It's that one that's like made of innards, right?
It's like blood something. I don't remember the name of it. Either way. It's all about bleed damage, which is very strong in this game. And basically, when you use that weapon, that katana, and you like swipe in front of yourself at enemies, you have these sort of, it looks like blood is like shooting off of the katana, like, and it's hitting enemies like 10, 15 feet out in front of you. Like, it's got pretty good range on it. So I kind of want to switch to that once I get it, but I don't think I'm going to get it for a while yet. So
yeah, it's been a very successful game. From Software has basically been like, this is it. It's a new franchise. So look forward to more Elden Ring content.
Yeah, it's something that popped up this week. They were talking about how they hope to expand it beyond the games. So hard to say exactly what that means, but it seems like maybe they want to, like, they could possibly make a TV show or a movie, or it could just be like books or something like that, which would be fine as well. But would you watch an Elden Ring TV show?
I think that I would. How many hours do you have in it right now?
I'm probably getting close to the 40-hour mark.
Do you know what's going on?
Yes and no. So one of the complaints I actually have about the game is its quest design. Like, people have been praising it for not having a quest log. I continue to be very anti the fact that it doesn't have any sort of journal anywhere in the menu that you can refer to, because I forget where the characters are, and like the ones I've met like 10 hours ago that, you know, didn't make a big impression on me. And like this last week I was playing and I met a character who randomly turned up at the Round Table Hold, which is this like hub world area that you can go to, where you can talk to NPCs and like level up your weapons and stuff like that. And she just randomly turned up. I didn't know who she was. And I talked to her and she said some gibberish mumbo jumbo that I didn't understand. And as you have to do in this game, you have to Google search the name of any NPC you meet, because they probably have some sort of quest for you to do, even though the game isn't going to make it clear what you're supposed to do. And it turns out I was supposed to have run into her at Stormvale Castle before I took on like the second main story boss of the game. And for whatever reason, even though I felt like I had explored that fairly thoroughly when I went through, I did not encounter her. And so I went and I talked to her for a little while, and then she was like, well, see you later, I'm off now. And I was like, okay, where are you going? And of course the game doesn't tell you that. And I think the idea is that you're just supposed to like encounter them again as you explore the game, and it'll be like, oh, I remember you from like 10 hours ago, you were so and so. That didn't happen. Instead, I looked up the walkthrough and it was like, oh yeah, next you'll find her in this area and there's like a village that you can go to and you'll like defeat some enemies and there's like a boss there. I'm like, oh yeah, I did that like 10 hours ago already. So I had to just fast travel back to that place I had already been to, and she was just there and she said some more gibberish that I didn't understand again. And so then eventually she shows back up at the Round Table Hold, and it's just like, I understand that it's a problem that can happen because of the open world format, where like it's possible for you to inadvertently complete quest steps for somebody even though you've not met them yet. And it's possible to like break somebody's quest line by not knowing that what you're doing is somehow tied to a quest line. But it's just like, it's bad quest design. I don't know how else to put it. Like they need to do a better job of like signposting things and make it, because the game, like a lot of the lore and the story and the characters were written by George R.R. Martin, and that was like the big name that they sort of attached to this. And you go, okay, well, I really want to know about the lore, and there is some like cool stuff there that I would like to know more about, but it's so hard to like find the stuff. You know what I mean? Like you pretty much have to,
it's just buried.
It's buried, and you have to look up like a lore video to understand it. And it was also a weird thing where like at the Round Table Hold, this character was there and he like refused to talk to me for a long time for some reason. I'm not really sure what that was about. And then just randomly I went back there at one point, and he had moved to a different area, and he was like happy to talk to me just fine. Like nothing. And I did not know what happened to change the circumstance, but he was willing to talk to me. And so I talked to him, and he like had all this like background information, like you could ask about each of the different like main story bosses, and he would tell you a little bit about them. And I was like, yeah, this would have been nice to have had at the start of the game before I'd already taken out 3 of these guys. Like, why is this just happening now? So there's like a lot of like random stuff like that I think is just bad, but that I think people are giving it a pass to because they like everything else about the game, and they don't want to, you know, dock it for stuff like that. But yeah, I don't think a journal or like some sort of codex, where kind of like in Mass Effect, where anytime you meet like a new alien race, you can go into your menu and there's a codex where you can like read this backstory about like where these people come from and like what the sort of social political situation is with them and some other alien race. And it's like all very interesting and really like invests you in the universe. And this game is badly missing that. Like it needs it like really badly, I think. And so I know like a lot of people are saying how great the game is for not having a quest log and stuff like that, but I continue to disagree with that because I don't want to write it myself. And I feel like that's most people's defense is that, oh, you can just
like have a little notebook.
Yeah, just have a little notebook beside you and write everything down. Like, I'm not going to do that. I shouldn't have to do that. The game should be able to track that stuff for me. But that's maybe the only thing I don't like about it. And it is like a fair gripe too. It's not like a minor thing, but it's also not like a game breaking thing because I'm still like hopelessly addicted to it. Like I can't stop playing it and looking stuff up about it, but I really wish it would do a better job with its storytelling. And that's where something like a book or a TV show or a movie could improve on.
Definitely fill in the gaps.
Yeah, so I do think that would be cool if they expand it beyond the game.
I do think, though, much like the God of War series, like, you would need to throw money at this thing because both of those are about these, like, fantastical worlds where just, like, insane monsters live. More so, I guess, Elden Ring, because everything is insane. But even God of War, like, you have to put money into that, or it's just going to be a guy with white paint on his face walking around a forest, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. They need to throw a lot of money at it and really do it right. But
did you watch that Hogwarts Legacy State of Play?
I did. Did you get a chance to watch it?
I also watched it, yes.
So this is more of like an open world RPG than I thought it was going to be. I guess I
was surprised. Yeah, it's like the full castle is at your disposal.
Yeah, and you can like go around and explore and find secrets and use your different magic abilities to like unlock different areas that you can go explore. Like I don't know what I expected from this game, to be honest, but it was not this, and this is way more interesting to me than I expected it to be.
It seems like the combat is somewhat deep, which I was not expecting. And the story seems like they actually thought about it.
Yeah.
I don't know what I was expecting with this. I thought it was going to be kind of just like a cheap cash-in to go alongside those Fantastic Beasts stories, but it seems like they really put some money into this.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat where I was not expecting much from this game, and just seeing this like 15 minute long like gameplay showcase, I came away from it like being really impressed by it. And so it's supposed to take place like before the books and the movies.
I think it's like in the 1870s, they said.
Something like that, yeah. And so it sort of frees them up to not have to do anything related to them, to the books and movies. So they kind of have a clean slate to kind of do like some different story elements. And that also means you're probably not going to run into too many characters that you recognize. But that's fine. Yeah, I thought this was really interesting, surprisingly.
Did they give a release date?
I don't remember seeing one. I'm not sure. It is supposed to come out this year. So Game Informer is saying that it's going to release this year on PS5, PS4, and Xbox One and Xbox Series S and X and PC.
I will say, though, I'm not super invested in the world of Harry Potter.
Yeah,
so
I'm kind of in the same boat where, like, I like for sure anybody who loves Harry Potter and that universe, like, this is sort of like a dream game, like it would be for sure. I just am not super invested in it, so I don't know if I'm like hotly anticipating it. But I will say I was very, very impressed by what I saw.
Well, a couple of games came out this week. I have only heard good things, or not good things, but interesting things about the Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin game.
Yeah.
Which I guess is kind of like a Souls-like that Square Enix has made. But I have not really invested any time or energy to look up more information about it.
Yeah, I haven't either, and a lot of that is because I'm so deep into Elden Ring right now. I can't be bothered with like a weird Final Fantasy like Souls-like game, but I think it's maybe getting like a better reception than people were expecting. Like, it's not like people are super hot on it where it's like getting like crazy high scores or anything like that. I think it's like, it's probably in the 70s on Metacritic, and I feel like it's getting 7s and 8s in terms of reviews, but like people are kind of like, oh yeah, it's not as bad as maybe you thought it was going to be. It's like one of those situations.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm also not a big Final Fantasy person because I have not played most of the games, so this is not something like a world that kind of speaks to me just yet. Like, I like Final Fantasy VII Remake. I'm super interested in whenever that the next part of that comes out, and I will play Final Fantasy 16 if that ever comes out.
Yeah, really.
But I don't know that I'm super interested in like going back to some sort of origin story on this, just because I don't know the universe well enough.
Yeah, I agree. And it's not necessarily, I mean, I don't believe that every Final Fantasy is connected. This was like prior to extended universes, unless they're trying to like retcon some stuff. But I really only played Final Fantasy 7 and 9, I want to say. I believe 9 is the one where you're the little boy with a tail. And I only beat Final Fantasy 7. So I'm not super invested in this, but it does look interesting. I just have not, it's not super on my radar. But
yeah,
what is on my radar is Tunic, which we'll talk about in a little bit. That finally released. It's on Game Pass. If you have Game Pass, you can just check it out. But we'll talk about that in a second. And then also the first part of the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe DLC courses dropped this week. Did you check that out, Zach?
I did.
Because you have the extra pass or whatever.
Yeah, I could download these. I have not yet. Again, because Elden Ring is like eating up all of my gaming time.
Ever present.
Yeah, but so yeah, wave 1 of these new races have dropped, and so I think it's pretty cool. I saw some people were jumping into it. They're supposed to get 48 by 2023, and this is just sort of wave 1.
It's crazy.
And that obviously means that Mario Kart 9 won't come out until at the very earliest sometime next year, but I kind of doubt that it'll probably be 2024 before it comes out. But
it's so crazy that we got those like articles. There were like 2 or 3 articles that were like, oh yeah, we're working on the next Mario Kart and it's going to have an interesting twist. And then this happened, and I guess basically maybe that twist isn't working out, or they're just taking more time, or they realized they didn't need to rush it. Yeah. And we're just like not going to see what that twist is for a couple of years.
Well, and it's really weird because of course Mario Kart 8 came out in 2014 on the Wii U, and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe has been out on the Switch for years now. And they're just now, like after they've already released like information that the next one's coming, now is when they're doing like DLC for it. Like, where was this like 2 years ago? Mm-hmm. You know, like it's very curious how they've gone about this, but it did also come with some bug fixes, I think, some different, it's supposed to improve, I think, wireless play or like online play a little bit, but I don't know that I'm going to jump right into this, but I think it's cool that it's out nevertheless.
Okay, let's talk about it. Tunic released. It's been in development forever. We've seen it at multiple E3s, and it is now an Xbox console exclusive. So unfortunately, you can't play it on Switch yet, but I have to imagine at some point, like next year, they will launch it on Switch and make a bunch of money. But I'm playing it on PC on Steam right now. And you probably are still, you haven't picked it up, have you, Zach?
If I do, I can just download it on Game Pass, which I may do in a while.
I am about 3 hours into it, and I like it. It's good. I don't love the combat, unfortunately. It's very beautiful, and I want to keep playing it just because the map is so interesting to look at. Like, when you first start the game, it kind of like rolls onto your screen, and you can see a good part of the map, and it's just so interestingly designed. Aesthetically, it's gorgeous. I wish I connected a little bit more with the combat.
That's the thing I've heard about it so far, is that combat is kind of not that great, but...
Yeah, it's very floaty, and I feel like I just can't. Maybe I'm missing an item, but like the first big thing I came up to, like I was able to beat the first boss pretty easily. I only died a couple of times, but it was like stuff where I was like, oh yeah, this was my fault that I died. But then I kind of opened up the middle area, and to progress, I needed to collect a key that was at the foot of this big bad guy. But he wasn't necessarily a boss. I think there's a couple of these guys spread around. And he's just like a slightly taller guy with a shield. And I tried to fight him like 5 times, and I just always died. He always like one-shot me. And then I was like, well, maybe I don't have an item. So I went around a little bit. I basically stole the key out from under him and just ran away. And then I got a shield. And I was like, okay, maybe this is it. Maybe if I shield him, I'll have some time to like go in and attack him. And that also didn't super help. I would just shield, and he would push me super far away as he attacked me, and it would just get rid of all my stamina. And so I couldn't even really like roll to him, and it was just impossible. So maybe even still I don't have an item. But I eventually killed him by like throwing an ice bomb at him. But the ice bombs are consumable. Like I opened a chest and I got 2 of them, and then when I used them, that was it. So that also rubbed me the wrong way a little bit. Like, because it's a Souls-like game, where it is kind of like a Souls-like game because you're finding these statues and then resting at them, and then all the enemies reset. I was hoping that all my consumables would reset too, but that is not the case. So I don't know if there's like a way to get more
Is there
ice
like
bombs,
a crafting thing in the game?
Yeah, that would be great too. But the presentation is wonderful. Like, everything is presented. You collect these pages of an old like NES instruction booklet. So like, you'll get one, and it's written in this weird like Tunic language or whatever. So there's not really words on it, but the pictographs, you can kind of discern what's going on. You can like flip through them in your menu.
Yeah,
eventually you get a world map.
It made me think of No Man's Sky, because in that game there's like some sort of mysterious like alien language that you're encountering everywhere, and it'll show you some text, and you'll be like, well, I can't read that, so I don't know what's going on here. And eventually you're able to like, you find something that will allow you to translate like bits and pieces of it, and so it sort of slowly starts to make sense to you.
And I don't believe that's the case here. I think it is just random, or it's possible to translate it, but I don't think it's going to do it in game. To me, it felt more like Hyper Light Drifter, which didn't have any words in it, or Fez. Fez specifically, because those are translatable if you really want to and collect more. But when you rest at a statue, it makes a sound that's very similar to the Fez sound that you hear, which I think was intentional. In the menu, you can turn on invincibility, and you can turn on the ability to have infinite stamina. And I did that. I am invincible now.
Really? That's cool.
So I'm just running around because I want to explore the world more. I want to know what the story is. It's so interestingly designed, and it seems like there's like enough lore in it. Like, I'm coming upon these vignettes of things that I think happened in the past, and I am super interested to know more. I just am not connecting with the combat. So I'm very happy that they have this invincibility mode. I just made it to the West Forest or whatever. I've rung 1 bell. Everything, I think this is also a pun that people aren't talking about. Tunic is, you're wearing a tunic, but I also believe it's about tune, like music, because everything is like tuning rods and like bells and sounds and whatnot. So I've rung 1 bell, and I believe I need to ring, like, based on a page that I found, I think I need to ring like 3 or 4 bells, and then this door will open. So I'm 100% committed to completing the story, but I'm going to just kind of breeze through it, I think, because I'm going to keep invincibility on, unless I get more interesting gear, which unlocks for me better ways to fight people. But at this point, I don't know. It's just like the rolling, you roll a little bit too far, and if you roll like 3 times, your stamina runs out, so you really have to like be precise, and it's just not what I'm looking for. So I'm on board, and I'm interested in the story, and it's very beautiful, and the illustration on the like NES instruction manual is wonderful, and it's like that isometric low poly look that I love. It's not that Hyper Light Drifter. It's not that super satisfying combat. I've played that game through like 3 times on 3 different consoles, just because I love the combat so much. It's so satisfying, and I feel like I'm only going to play through Tunic once just to get what the story is.
It also kind of made me think of that Death's Door game a little bit.
Yes, that is actually a very apt comparison. Death's Door I really liked because the combat was great, and another thing about Death's Door that I think really worked was you got different weapons. I don't know that you are going to get different weapons in this one. I think you're only ever going to have the sword. But I really liked Death's Door, and I completed it. And there were some very frustrating moments in it, but it was never, I think, because the combat was bad. It was always because I was bad at the combat until I got good at it. Whereas this is, I think, just the combat is kind of an afterthought.
Yeah, from what I've seen, the combat does not look particularly compelling, and I've definitely heard that it's the weakest aspect of the game.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm into it, and I think it is a good game that people should check out, if only for the art and the story. But I think they were wise to put that invincibility on there, because I think a child would be really into this game just for like the story and the art, and to just have that thing on where you can't die. I think it's such an obstacle, especially I think as you get further in the game, it's going to be such an obstacle that you can just breeze through. And so I think a lot of kids would like this. But as an adult who, I say that I'm an adult, but I don't know if I am. But I don't know. Death's Door I think is maybe a better game as far as
just
gameplay.
A better version of this idea.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know. It's too early to tell, I think. I need to play it all the way through to form more opinions about it. But for now, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, watching people play this and talk about how they were not getting into the combat, and just like seeing that it seemed to my mind pretty similar to Death's Door just made me, if anything, want to go play Death's Door and not this. Yeah. But maybe
I would recommend Death's Door above this game. For sure. But over both of these, I would recommend Hollow Knight if you're going to go play something. But when we did get a little bit of Hollow Knight news this week, the voice actress for Hornet, who is the main character in Silksong, somebody asked her if she'd completed her voice lines for Silksong, and she was like, "Oh yeah, I'm all done with my part." So her voice lines, for whatever it's worth, are completed. We also, I don't know if this is real or not, but someone looked in the Steam API on Silksong's page, and it had what I believe to be a placeholder date of February 28th, 2028 as the release date. And I think that is wrong, because that's way too far away. I'm still hopeful that we'll get more Silksong news later this year, but
yeah,
that's what we should really be talking about is Silksong. That's going to blow Tunic out of the water.
As like a somewhat similar type of a game, but much better.
I don't know that. Well, so I think it's just a game.
Well,
if Silksong comes out this year, it might be my game of the year.
So to me, like, because I think of this a little bit with Elden Ring as well, where it's kind of like it's almost like just an open world, like 3D take on the Metroidvania, where you're like combat can be somewhat difficult, and there are bosses and those are difficult, but like exploring can be satisfying, and you can get all kinds of upgrades for doing that exploring. And in order to like sort of save your progress, you have to find these places where you like sit down for a second, and like that basically is what a Metroidvania is.
True.
But Elden Ring is just like a much bigger open world version of that. And so yeah, it's interesting. So I guess because I still have not played Death's Door yet, and I've been kind of saving it for when I get my Steam Deck. But
yes, that would be great to play on Steam Deck.
Is that kind of the same idea there, where you're finding these little places to like save?
Sort of. Yeah, I think it is kind of like that. So what you're looking for in Death's Door are doors, literally. And when you open those doors, you go back to the hub world. I found it a little bit confusing, though, because they don't necessarily... Like, once you open that door and you're back in the hub world, you can make your way back down to the main area and buy stuff. But I would always get lost in the hub world, because it was not super easy for me to figure out where I was going. It is pretty similar, though, where you're looking around for upgrades and... exploring until you get to a part, and then you will eventually like all the enemies will respawn. It's a good execution of it for sure, and it's a game that I'm glad that I beat, even though the last boss was like infuriating at times.
Yeah, it's just sort of isometric instead of 2D, the way something like Hollow Knight would be. But
Hollow Knight's great, I have to say. The best execution of a Metroidvania I've ever played. I played 2 of them.
I was going to say, how many Metroidvanias have you played?
Metroid Dread and Hollow Knight.
Make Ori and the Will of the Wisp the third one.
I need to, yeah. I have almost bought it I was like, last weekend, I was like, maybe I should just bite the bullet and get Ori and the Will of the Wisp on Switch. But then I realized, like, well, I just need to wait 3 days and then Tunic's going to come out. So I held off and I started playing Tunic, and I am going to complete it, I think, before I start playing something else. But, I mean, Kirby comes out next week.
Yeah, that's true. So you've got to finish Tunic in a week, and then you'll be playing Kirby. And then after
that's something I'm very excited about.
Yeah. I think it'll be a real nice change of pace after Elden Ring.
Yeah, man. You're going to be a pro. You're going to be destroying those enemies in Kirby with all of your Elden Ring skills.
I'll just finally not be frustrated at dying is really the main thing.
You probably won't die.
Well, yeah. Who knows? Who can say? I don't know that. I think it's not necessarily that being able to beat bosses in Elden Ring makes you better at gaming. It makes you less frustrated at dying, because you come to a place where you are like, okay, well, that's just gonna happen. It's part of the process. It's part of learning, and I don't know that I've. Again, because they talk about how Elden Ring is more accessible and you can use things like summons and things like that, and because it's an open world RPG where you can grind and make yourself like way over leveled for the bosses, it's one of those things where I've pretty much not really had to bang my head against a particular boss just yet. I've usually been able to beat them in like at the most a couple of tries, like maybe 2 or 3 tries. So it's not been too bad so far, other than the questing.
Yeah, I wonder, do you think it's possible that someone will mod the PC version of Elden Ring and put in a quest log?
I would love that if they did that. It would make me almost want to buy the PC version and try playing it that way. Because, like, to go back to that example that I was talking about, where that NPC character randomly shows up at the round table hold, and I realize I've already completed like multiple steps in her quest. She later goes back to the round table hold, and you go try to talk to her, and she's like, not right now. I need to think about everything that's happened. And you're just like, what's happened? Like, I don't know what you're talking about. What's happened is I completed things like 20 hours ago, and now you're very upset about it.
There's all those Skyrim mods. Skyrim has been out forever, but I mean, the inventory system in Skyrim was not great. And so you can download like 4 or 5 different mods in Skyrim, and it will just like improve the inventory and like improve the ability you traverse the world, and just like all these UI changes that are just much needed. And I wonder if someone is already working hard at doing that for Elden Ring.
Just like creating the menus that should be in the game that don't exist.
That's when I was playing it. So I'm still playing it off and on, but it still has not clicked for me. I'm more watching it. I'm watching a streamer play through it all. He's been posting like 8-hour streams of him playing it. But when I was playing it, the menuing is just very dense to me. And also when you pick something up, it doesn't tell you where it goes in your inventory. It's just like, hey, you picked up this dagger of the fallen thief. And I'm like, oh, it's a weapon probably. But in fact, it's not a weapon. It's like an emblem or like a keepsake or something. It's in a completely different part of the menu. And I will just like not be able to find stuff sometimes.
Yeah.
And I would love for there to be a much better menu system, especially on PC. If they let you like click around, that would be game changing.
Yeah, there is a way to like sort your inventory by like last picked up, but even that I think you have to like scroll all the way to the bottom, and it's still like paginated in a weird way where like you have everything you have to like keep cycling through. It's not a great system, but I
needs improvement. But that might be the only area you're saying that needs improvement.
I mean, for sure, the questing and the menus, I would not mind seeing an improvement on. Like, they could definitely do a better job of their storytelling. Now that said, like there is some like crazy stuff that I still don't know that I fully understand, but like I'm going through Ranni the Witch's quest line right now, and like to a degree, it like pretty much every quest that I've gone through, there's always one step that's like, now you were supposed to have intuited that you go to this random spot on the map and interact with this random thing, or like there's a random person over here that you can talk to that will have like a random dialogue option for you. And it's just like, game, what would make you think that I would think to do that? I mean, clearly somebody did, so maybe they're figuring stuff out that I didn't, but like, I don't understand.
Did you see that Volcano Mansion thing they just figured out?
The what one?
The thing in the Volcano Mansion?
No. Is there something crazy
There's
going
a
on?
wall.
Oh, yeah. No, I did see that.
Mansion.
Where you have to, like, strike a wall, like, 50 times and it opens up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so now everybody is like, what other walls do you need to strike 50 times?
I feel like people are going to be discovering, like, random, like, fake walls that you can open up by doing, like, some weird thing to them, like, for years and years and years. Like, 10 years down the road, we're going to hear about somebody who finally discovered this. He's, like, played the game for like 50,000 hours and he just discovered this random thing that nobody figured out.
It's a cool feature, but it's also just like, come on.
Yeah. Like, really? Like, I get you got to put some of that stuff in there for the really crazy hardcore people, but also like, I don't know, man. Like, I paid the same amount of money they did. I want to find all this stuff. Like, I want to have access to all elements of the story. Mm-hmm. Why don't I get that? Oh, because you got to think to hit a wall 50 times. Well, and there was one quest step too where you find like this doll of some sort, and if you rest at a grace site, you'll have this option to talk to it, and but it doesn't react to you if you press it for like the first 2 times. You have to do it like 3 times, and that's another one of those things like, really, game? Like, I probably, if I wasn't looking at a walkthrough, I would have tried it maybe once or twice and been like, something's up here. I guess it doesn't work. Maybe I have to try it again later. And then I would just quit and I would never progress the storyline. And it's just like, you have to like somehow be really persistent with stuff and just like somehow be on the same wavelength as FromSoft. And I'm not on that wavelength, whatever it is. So there's a lot of stuff that I still find kind of frustrating in that regard, but I'm still like really enjoying like the progression, and I'm getting into the combat and getting better at that, and like learning the different systems, and it's always very satisfying to take out a boss as well. So like, I'm on board with it for a lot of this other stuff. There's just some elements of it that still drive me crazy. But it's also crazy to like watch streamers play it, because I feel like just about any stream I tune into, like, they're in some different part of the game that I haven't seen yet, and I haven't seen other streamers play yet. And it's always like, there's just so much to the game. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it is. It's just like every corner you turn, you'll see a structure or like a hole in the ground. And it seems like, well, maybe I should go check that out. And then eventually you're just like in a giant cavern with a crazy winged beast all of a sudden. Yeah,
and it's also confusing because some of it's like I want to be able to access some of those later areas in the game, because like you were talking about the Volcano Manor, and then there's also like a snowy area to the north that I have no clue how to get to. Like, I think maybe I probably just need to like keep playing through the main stuff, like try to maybe get through that next like place where there would be a main boss, and maybe that's how I get there. But like, I want to be able to explore anywhere at any time. I don't want to like reach these checkpoints where it's like, you can't go there until you do this other thing. Mm-hmm. But maybe the game needs more of that, and maybe that way the quest wouldn't feel broken half the time. I don't know. Yeah. I'm back and forth on it, but yeah, there's some really cool moments in the game. So like we were talking about how I completed that fight against General Radon. That's like a a really cool set piece and sort of a different take on the normal boss fight, because normally you just go in there and maybe you summon your summons and you fight them, and then once you kill them, it's over. With the Radahn one, like it feels like you're sort of part of a bigger thing, because there's like some sort of festivities going on, and there are like other NPCs that you've interacted with in the world will join you, and you can like summon them. They're like these little glowing spots like on the ground that you can run around and bring them in, and they'll all go in and attack, and there's like a bunch of people running around attacking him, and it feels like this big sort of war effort almost. So it's a little different from some of the other fights I've done in the game, and I thought it was a pretty cool thing. So I recommend looking that up if you've not played the game. Just look up General Radahn.
I just actually, last night, the streamer that I watch did that fight. He didn't complete it because he got to the second phase of it and was just like, I'm not dealing with this right now. But it was very cool to see.
It's possible that I was over-leveled for it, because it only took me 2 tries. And the second try, I feel like it wasn't glitched, but it felt like it was, because I took him down almost too easily, and I was like, I don't know, did I do this wrong? Did I cheat? Did I get away with something here? Because I was like on my horse and I like rode up behind him, and he was like attacking all the NPCs that I had brought in, and I didn't even have to get off my horse. I just stayed kind of behind him and just like kept hacking at him. And because my weapons do bleed damage, like I was taking off huge amounts of health like pretty quickly, and I took him down super fast, which is not how my first attempt went. My first attempt was much more difficult than that, but I don't know. I felt like I had gotten away with something a little bit, and I'm not sure what it was. Mm-hmm. I just like stuck to his butt and just kept hitting him. Normally he's like spinning around and doing crazy stuff, so you can't do that, but somehow I got positioned just right where I could hit him and he couldn't hit me. So that was pretty fun.
Well, I think that's going to do it for this week.
That's another podcast. Stay tuned and we'll talk about Elden Ring again, I'm sure.
Might have some stuff to say about Kirby next week as well.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Hopefully we'll both dive in a little bit on that, and we'll have some Kirby talk. Do you have any parting wisdom, I guess I should ask?
You know, I've realized a lot of my parting wisdoms are about fast food.
Yeah.
And that is the case again this week.
Wow. Big surprise.
Taco Bell used to have this great thing called the Beefy Fritos burrito, which was cool because it was like you got some Fritos in there, so there's like a crunch in your burrito. But they don't have it anymore. I have a conspiracy theory that Fritos are in very short supply right now. But
Frito shortage.
Sonic just came out with this thing that I guess they had previously, but I had never heard of it, called like a chili cheese junior Fritos melt or something. But it is basically what it is a tiny little tortilla that has like chili in it, and then a little bit of cheese, and then Fritos. So it's kind of a better version of the Beefy Fritos burrito because you get the Sonic chili as well. And I have to say, it's very good. There's a junior version and then also like a regular version. I haven't gotten the regular version because that seems too extreme. But the junior one, much like we talked about last week, is great to eat in the car because it's all wrapped up and you can just chomp on it and you're on your way. So if you are a fan of the Beefy Fritos burrito and there's a Sonic by you, definitely take a look at I don't even remember what it's called. It's got a crazy name. It's called like the Chili Cheese Junior Frito Wrap. Or like Muncher or something. It's something crazy. But definitely check that out.
There is not a Sonic near me. There used to be. It's gone now.
Oh, yeah, that's a bummer. That is sad.
And on that note, go ahead and follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Starside Cafe. And subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast app. And we'll catch you on the next one.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.